Hello everybody and welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at the Go Battle League. We're going to analyze a few teams that is submitted to me by some of the players within our community, and also look at a team that I've been having some decent success with. I don't want you guys to actually look at my picks and think of it as something that you should try or do. I want you guys to actually come up with your own teams. So look at what I'm doing in terms of how the team matches together, the thought process behind how each one is picked, and then try and come up with something yourself. You know, that's the best way to get some enjoyment out of the game, and that's also how you can be, for lack of a better term, a meta slave. You know, if you're constantly going after the meta, people are just going to get creative and get around you. So play with the roles, play with some ideas, don't be afraid to experiment. You know, that in my mind at least is the most fun part of the game, to be able to experiment. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at the team that I like to personally use quite a bit, or recently I've been using it quite a lot. It's been getting some pretty decent success. I was close to getting into rank 10, but you know, things just gets a little bit too extreme up there, so I dropped down again and then climbed back up. So I've been hovering around ranked 9 for quite a while now. That's where I can find the best sweet spot for farming Stardust, and we all need that sweet dust. Anyways, so to start off with, we have Frostlass as our lead. She is a ice and ghost type, a very unique typing, and personally I like to use her simply because she's got a very good fast move in the form of Powder Snow, and she charges up the two very damaging charge moves in Avalanche and Shadow Ball very quickly. And she also has a unique coverage in the Great League meta. So, you know, her Shadow Ball will hit most things, even neutral things, pretty hard. You know, it's a rare day that if someone eats a Shadow Ball, they don't take at least 40 to 50% of their HP. That's just, you know, simply it. That's how much the damage is. And then Avalanche is just fantastic because you use that to kill, you know, your plant things, your ground things, your big bird, you know, the big bird, Altaria. It straight up one-shots that. So if I see at least any of those leading, I know that I've won the lead. It makes things very simple. So moving on, I've got my Deoxys D as my switch, and the reason why I like to use Deoxys for the switch is that it takes neutral damage from most because of its psychic and only psychic typing, and it has a very unique coverage in the form of the fact that it has Counter, the best fast move in the game, as its fast move. It has Rock Slide, which is very spammy. Rock Slide incidentally hits most things pretty hard as well, so that's your flying types, your ice types, your bug types, your electric types, even your Charizards will get one shot by this thing here. And then you can round off with the coverage move Thunderbolt. So I see Deoxys as my very good safe switch that is also decentish in terms of threats, because it doesn't get the same type advantage or same type attack boost by using a psychic move, but it has a move diversity that is very wide and it can cover a lot of things. So for example, I can lose the lead in the form of the fact that sometimes I will hit an Azumarill. Your opponent will bring in an Azumarill, and I know that it will beat my Frostlass because water beats ice. Or I will have a Registeel as someone's lead. Or I will see that someone has led with a Melmetal. That's becoming very popular these days. Okay, and I can safely switch to Deoxys D knowing that the fast move counter will be a threat to the metal, the rock types, and even to a certain degree the dark types. And also I have a decentish coverage in terms of charge move, in which Thunderbolt will most likely kill Azumarill. And I have Rock Slide, that if my opponent then tries to switch in, let's say a Altaria or a Tropius, or quite a lot of other things, I can actually use Rock Slide to surprise them too. So Deoxys D makes sense for me in this case. It might not make sense for someone else that's using a different lead though, and we will get into that a little bit later. So now I have a game plan in terms of how I deal with losing the lead by having a decentish switch that works for my lead. I then look at what my game plan is if I win the lead. So that's the top little arrows there, basically. So if I win the lead, I need to look at a Pokemon that can either close for me, or I can stay in. You know, you either stay in when you're winning the lead, or you use another Pokemon to, as your closer, to kill the Pokemon that's going to come in to try and counter. Okay, so usually if I win the lead, I know that I'll match up with, let's say, like an Altaria. And these are all guesstimates in the background, so it's not an exact science. If, let's say, I win the lead, I know I'd match up against the flying type, an Altaria, a Tropius, or even the fighting type that would come in and is scared of my Shadow Ball. Okay, so they would naturally want to bring in something that is usually an Azumarill to try and kill my Frostlass, to kill this threat. Now, Azumarill is very tanky, and sometimes it packs things like, you know, your Ice Beam and that kind of stuff. So I need to come up with a game plan, or I want a closer that can actually kill Azumarill quickly. So in this case, I've picked Alolan Raichu. It skews my team to the Psychic and Ghost heavy, in the sense that I'm very weak to Dark types, and Umbreon is a nightmare for me, but you know, I've developed ways of dealing with Umbreon and the Alolan Mux and that kind of stuff that you start seeing in the higher level. You actually see a video of that example a bit later. So Raichu works for me in the sense that if I now need something that is very threatening, so Volt Switch, lots of damage, lots of energy, hits the Thunder Punch very, very quickly. I can just spam Thunder Punch like there's no tomorrow and put on a lot of shield pressure, maximize my advantage against the opponent. Usually in that kind of situation, if Alolan Raichu is lucky enough to trap anything that is weak to it, I will come out of that with lots of energy on Alolan Raichu, or I've gotten rid of a lot of my opponent's shields, or even the opponent makes a mistake and tries to switch in a Mudboy, in which they eat a grass knot to the face. And that's one shot, instant one shot. So this is kind of how I look at my team for my Go Battle League. And we are also going to now look at some of the other teams that the community has submitted, and just see what their thought process is. And you know, I just want to just give you guys a bit of an idea of how I like to consider making up the team. Why do I want to lead with a certain Pokemon, versus now that I'm leading with that Pokemon, what my game plan should be if I lose the lead. But now if I win the lead, how do I maximize that advantage that I get? That's something very important. So this should be your thought process, in my mind, when you're putting together a team for Go Battle.
I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
Okay, so we're going to look at a community submission, and this is one of the Go Battle League team that a member of our community has been trying, and I'm just breaking it down for him in terms of what lead he's using, what the switch would be, and what the closer is. I'm also using his move as a reference and just want to highlight certain issues that I see, and this is by all means not a criticisms, just what I can see. Maybe some changes would help with general quality of life of the team, as well as where it would probably be better strategic perspective. Yeah, so looking at the lead, he's got Tropius. It's a grass and flying type. It is running Razor Leaf, Leaf Blade, as well as Aerial Ace. One of the problem with this is that Razor Leaf is not a good move if you're going to use Tropius as a lead. Reasoning is because its coverage is pretty bad, and it charges up really slowly compared to using, let's say, the Air Slash move. Okay, the reasoning for this is that you create a lot of threat against things like your Azumarill, which is what I'm assuming you're trying to fight against. But any Azumarill that is packing an Ice Beam can easily decide that, you know what, I'm going to stay in rather than give up the switch advantage and try and land an Ice Beam on you. If you do the Sims in that kind of situation, you come out probably only with about 12 HP left, which is still not a good position to be in. So if you're going to use Tropius as a lead, you would rather use it with Air Slash, where it can actually give a little bit more coverage against other things like the fighting types, certain bugs that you might see down the line, and it can do neutral damage, but you will charge up Leaf Blade much faster as well, and you can actually scare away the Azumarills, stuff that could potentially be coming in to threaten you. The other issue is that if you lose the lead, and if you look underneath where the arrow for losing the lead leads to, you'd be surprised to see that you can actually lose the lead against a Tropius that is running the Air Slash move, which is actually a bit of a problem for this team. Is that if you lose the lead against a Tropius, now your switch comes in, you don't have an Ice Beam to fight against that. Okay, and a Tropius running Air Slash is not going to be scared of your closer as well, which can potentially, because it is tanky enough, it can come in and act as a switch as well. But the Ice Punch might not be enough to actually kill the Tropius, because you need to think of the fact that when you switch in something, you're generally at a disadvantage already, because the other Pokemon already has energy and other things that it's saved up. So Medichang comes in, it's at a typing disadvantage in the fact that this Tropius that has won the lead will already have Air Slash that you're weak to. That's the first thing. You still need to build up to your Ice Punch. Okay? Second thing now is that it's built up energy as well. So you would need to get rid of some shields just so that you don't get killed. Okay? And Air Slash would build up energy quick enough that you'll probably eat another one, which is not a nice position to be in, because now you're under the gun in terms of Aerial Ace. So my suggestion is either take out Play Rough or Hydro Pump to actually cover, to have Ice Beam in there, so that your switch, you have double Ice move to cover things that can come in and threaten your lead, which is Tropius in this case. Okay, if you look at the other two big Pokemons that you potentially will lose lead to, that is your Altaria. And I'm also not a fan of using Play Rough as a counter on my switch against Altaria, simply because Ice Beam charges up faster than Play Rough. So you might see that Altaria can come in, and because it's building up some damage already, or some charges already, okay, You can come in as a Morel, and you would probably eat a Sky Attack to the face. And you certainly can't switch in using your Medicham, because your Medicham would likely also eat a Sky Attack to the face, and it actually matters more for your Medicham, because in this case, Azumarill would be tankier than your Medicham. Okay. Now, Registeel is a bit of an extra example in this case, is that if you are faced with a Registeel as a lead, you don't really have a choice unless you're running Hydro Pump on your Azumarill to switch in your Medicham. But in this case, that's falling into the idea that, okay, you're now using your closer, which can generate a lot of threat, to come in and see if you can get rid of the Registeel quickly. And you're hoping that they don't actually switch in a flying type to fight against your Medicham. But you see, now you will need to, you have to kind of have a backup plan for if they do. Because if they now switch in, let's say, a Tropius that's hanging in the back, you actually don't have any answer for it, in the fact that your Tropius is running Razor Leaf. Your Azumarill will be weak to it because it's not running Ice Beam as well. And you're now in a very bad situation. So the team is not bad, not by a long shot. It's just certain moves don't quite match the roles that you would give it. A Razor Leaf Tropius is more a closer, because you would rely on the fast move to come in and mop up quickly, because that's highly damaging. Okay, you wouldn't necessarily lead with it. So yeah, I hope this helps. Thanks.
Over the bridge! Fly! You cannot pass!
Get out!
Go back to the shadow! Shall not pass!
So this is a bad matchup. Melmetal is very, very bad matchup for Frostlass. It builds up to Rock Slide very, very quickly. So as you can see, I swap out immediately to Deoxys. Deoxys comes in and immediately has to take on a Rock Slide. However, I'm now threatening the Melmetal with counter, which is doing very, very good damage, and I'm also pressuring him on shield in terms with my own Rock Slides. Okay. Then he swaps out to bring in Venusaur to come and take on the Thunderbolt. It's a very good play, however, it's not exactly the most a good matchup against Deoxys, which kind of tells me that he really doesn't have an answer to it. Okay, so we lose my Venusaur, but we were able to now be in a decentish or more even position where Frostlass can come in and kill Venusaur. I'm going to use a shield here to preserve my Frostlass's HP, and now I have energy to... we're experiencing a little lag here. We have energy to actually deal with whatever Pokemon comes next. On hindsight, I probably should have saved my Avalanche, but I'll blame the fact that I was getting a phone call at the same time as well. Anyways, so we were able to bring in the Alolan Raichu to come and threaten the opponent's Poliwrath, and now they bring in the Melmetal, but the Melmetal has way too low HP to make a difference. Poliwrath comes in and eats a Thunder Punch to the face, and that will be game. Looking at this particular matchup, this is actually a very horrible matchup for me because Alolan Muck beats all three of my Pokemon. And the strategy here is to bring in something that is basically a sacrifice. but at the same time do as much damage to it as possible so that the next Pokemon has a more manageable matchup. As you can see, I'm putting a lot of pressure by just spamming Rock Slide as well as using Counter. I'm gonna have to eat the Start Pulse, and you can see it deals a ton of damage. But now I'm actually getting the opposing Alolan Muck down into its final little bits, and I will also be able to take a shield with me, so the next Pokemon now has a much easier time. Frostlass comes in and we're able to get rid of the threat immediately. Despite losing the matchup, now I'm on a more even footing. Even shields, even Pokemon left. And then he brings in a Lantern, which will eat a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball just does so much damage. And I shield the Thunderbolt. And then we're able to farm up to a Shadow Ball and swap out to a Alolan Raichu, which will resist the Thunderbolt that's coming in. Now they swap out to their Venusaur, and I unfortunately won't be able to swap them out Alolan Raichu, but I'm gonna stay in and do as much damage as possible, which is decent. This will allow me to come in and immediately threaten the Venusaur with an Avalanche. And we're still a decent winning matchup. We're able to get to another Avalanche before the Venusaur could get to their Vine Whip. Is it Vine Whip? No, Frenzy Plant, yeah. And then with a very, very close match, I was able to win with a final Avalanche to the Lantern. Anyway, so that's how you can kind of win losing the lead. It does get very dicey, as you can see with some of the matchups in the end there. It becomes very, very close, but with the right team and the right switching partner for your lead, there is no reason why you can't take back the initiative despite losing the lead. I hope this has been very, very helpful to you, and I hope that you guys are enjoying the memes. Please feel free to leave any comments and any suggestions. As you can see, we're still growing, we're still trying out new things in this channel, so any suggestions and would be much appreciated. Thank you, and see you next time.